Amazing. Thank you. Do any of you know who wrote that song? Huh? Okay. No. I know. Everything Ricky Byers, right? No. His name's Trevor Hall. He's a millennial. He's 33 years old, and his music. There's a whole resurgence, a whole generation of resurgence in this divine feminine and recognizing. What did he say? I look upon this land as mother. We are children of her ancient secrets. He's 33. You know, for centuries, way, way back, the beginning of any form of faith, philosophy, or religion that's known to us is the indigenous shamanic traditions. And they very much revered that divine feminine. And so this month, March, is Women's Month, right? Women's History Month. And so it just seems fitting that we discuss and embody and embrace the divine feminine. And so there's 5 Sundays this month. And in order to kind of have some synchronicity here, we're going to begin with the Holy Reimagined. The Holy Reimagined, and work our way from there. But first, I found this really funny joke that I have to share with you. Like I said at first service, please laugh anyway because, whatever, I'm a little awkward. Okay, so this is so funny. Okay, so it's the offering time, right? And there's this little old lady in the back, and she's like searching through her purse, trying to find her money or her wallet or whatever. And all of a sudden, this big remote control drops out of her purse. And so the ushers who are handling the offering plates, one of them gets to her, and he bends down and gets the remote control for her and hands it to her. And he's thinking, why does she have a remote control? Like a TV remote control. And so he whispers to her, he goes, do you carry a remote control with you everywhere? And she goes, no. It was just that my husband wouldn't come to church with me today, and this was the most wicked way I could punish him legally. I thought that was really funny. I think I should do that with my son with the PlayStation remote. Anyway, so why is it necessary to reimagine the holy? When you think of holy, but then when you think of that word, what does it bring up for you? Just shout it out. The sacred, church, spirit, music. Huh? The number one. Yeah. The divine. Well, I like you guys. So, we may not need to reimagine the holy at all here. But it is fair to say that, let me just give you a little history on this word holy. It comes from Old English and Germanic, what is it called? Vocabulary. And what it meant, it had 2 meanings. It meant to be separate and apart in the Judaic philosophy. And then it also meant to be whole, to be complete. What does that remind you of? The affirmation that we always use here, what is it? Yeah, right. I'm whole, perfect, and complete. So we kind of catching on to something, right? But when this word holy, which just means to be whole, to be sacred, to be separate and apart in a way where we recognize that there's a spirit within us that is beyond this material world. When it was translated into English, what ended up happening is in the Christian scriptures, and I think the Hebrew scriptures as well, the term holy translated into God. And the word God was used with masculine pronouns. And they didn't mean anything by it at the time because they were using the word man short for mankind. But of course, over time, sometimes things devolve, right? And people start to misinterpret ideas. And so there became this idea that when you think of God or when you imagine God, a man appears. Did any of you ever grow up in a tradition where God was masculine? Yeah? Okay. So you get what I'm saying. So now we need to redefine, rediscover, remember the holiness, the wholeness of who we are and who we are as humanity. That we are whole, which means that we have within us, every one of us, a divine masculine aspect and a divine feminine aspect. Right? How many of you men here can feel the divine feminine within you? And how many of you females can feel the divine masculine within you? Yeah. That was a lot more women than men, but maybe our congregation just has, I have a lot of divine masculine in me. I asked my son one day, was that mean of me? And he goes, no, Mom, that's just you. Sometimes I'm just assertive or something. Anyway, so what we're going to do is we're going to start with looking at 3 different areas of this divine feminine, because it's really important for us as a foundation for this month moving forward in recognizing and honoring the divine feminine in all, to understand what does this even mean. So first, what does divine feminine mean? What is that, is it just some new age term? Where did it come from? What does it mean? And the second aspect that we'll look at is the history of the goddesses, of the matriarchal philosophies and faiths that have been passed down for centuries and that reside within us, whether we have been taught them or not in society today. And then, what's the point of any of it if we can't take something home with us, right? So then we will look at some spiritual practices that we can use to embody this divine feminine. And I want to just, I just want to make one thing clear to you men in the room. I want to, on behalf of, I'm just going to say myself, in an unconscious state, I'm not going to speak for all of women. I apologize. And what I apologize for is any time that I have been unconscious and saw your vulnerability, your compassion, your ability to share your shame as weakness. Because what it really is your expression of the divine feminine. Brene Brown says that when a woman can sit with a man in all of his shame and all of his guilt and all of his suffering and tears, when she can sit with him and not see him as weak and not blame him and not use him as her status or her savior, then she has done her work. How many men here have ever tried to express themselves or show a vulnerable, a divine feminine side to themselves and then been shut down or bullied as a child or misunderstood? Any of you? Yeah. Yeah. And that is not okay. And I apologize. And I think it's our work to do to not only embrace and uplift the rise of the divine feminine power within women, as we should be, but also that divine aspect within every one of us. Ernest Holm says that the divine masculine, divine feminine, it's androgynous, that God is androgynous. It is all gender and it is no gender. And he speaks this in, what was that chapter called? I loved it. It was in the first edition of the Science of Mind textbook called, you're going to love it. Let's see. Oh, it's the spirit of sex. So this is why it was the first edition, and probably none of you have heard of it. Or some of you have. He was very open to all sorts of stuff, and then kind of toned it down a little bit in the second version. Anyway, he talks about how the divine masculine and the divine feminine are one. And just like in our teaching symbol here, that the one leads into the other, that there is a grand idea, which is this divine masculine, and it is creative, and it impregnates the divine feminine, and she God, she spirit, carries this idea until it is birthed. And that is the creative process within each and every one of us. And so I just want to share with you something that he says. He says, regardless of our limitations, God is. And I'm going to use the word God, okay? Just reimagine whatever word you want to use for the power that's greater than we are. Regardless of our limitations, God is and continues to be. Our definitions and characterizations will never constrict the true nature and being of God. Limits we place on our God are the limits we place on ourselves. By expanding our understanding of the nature of God, we can see those aspects in ourselves and others until we are fully immersed in the oneness that we are. He says, it has been said that we can know God only insofar as we can become God. Now that might sound a little sacrilegious to some. We can know God insofar as we can become God. What are some attributes or synonyms to God for you? And do you feel that you have an ability to embody that, whether you do or not? And so we are expressing, we are the God of our understanding. And we are the God of others' understanding, because the only way that this divine intelligence can experience itself, the only way that the divine father and mother can come together and be fully alive in this material world is by means of us, by our actions and thoughts and listening and our hearts and our touch, our ears, our eyes. We are it. We're it. We are nature. I know that for myself, I always look out here because for myself, when I see something natural, see something that has grown, it reminds me of that divine feminine. It reminds me of this Mother Earth, this nurturing quality of God that is always providing for us. We have nuts, we have fruit, we have vegetables, we got some animals if you want to eat them, but we have, since the beginning, everything we've needed to be alive and well. You see? She's always taking care of us. Always taking care of us. And we are her nature. We are her expression. We're like walking trees. And so I just want to share with you this story that embodies the divine masculine and feminine together. There was a man, he told me this story about one time when he was in India, and he went to why do I always forget this? The Narmada River, which is this point in India, this river where 7 sacred sections combined and come together. And there are these stones. And only once a year can you gather these stones. And they're very sacred, very special stones. And I feel very blessed to be able to have some of these stones. The importance of them, the story that he told me was that he was walking down the side of the river, and this sweet old man, he came up to him and he said, "Would you like one of these stones? Would you like to buy one?" And he said, "Oh no, it's just a rock, you know." And the old man was very compassionate and sweet, and he said, "This is not just a rock." He said, "This is the only river that these are created in." And he said, when you look at it, and I'll share some in a minute, but when you look at it, you can see the divine masculine has been imprinted on the divine feminine. That the stone is considered the cosmic egg. It is the representation of the universe, of the physical universe that has been created for life as we understand it here. And that the divine masculine has been imprinted on it as a form of expression and unification. And so I'm just going to share some of them. You guys can pass them around. You want to see them? Oh, you guys can pass them around if you want. Like I said, the Hindus and the Buddhists, they hold and revere these stones with great sacredness, and they can only get them once a year. They take them out of the river, and it's a reminder to them of the unity and coming together of those divine masculine and feminine aspects. And so I want to just share with you some of the different traditions that have recognized this goddess, this, what are all the words? What words do you use for the divine feminine? Goddess. What else? Holy Spirit. Aphrodite. Enchantress. The self-procreating womb of the universe. I like that one, the self-procreating womb of the universe. Like, you got to think about it for a second, but that's kind of cool, right? The primordial female energy, feminine energy, I like that. So, in our modern culture, one of the most apparent world religious, popular religions, I think, that still represents the divine feminine is Catholicism. Have any of you, who used to be Catholic? Or what do you call yourselves, recovering Catholics or something? Yeah, okay. So, forgive me for knowing not, but I will say that in Catholicism, so far as I understand, they revere Mary, the mother of the only begotten Son, and, right? Yeah. Okay. And this is still practiced today, right? You Holy Mary, there's yes, all of that. Okay, I might be PTSDing you, or I might be making you happy. I don't know. But I might be triggering you, or it might be, anyway, so that's the most apparent, right? The most out there, we know that, but it's from the beginning of time. Like I said, the shamanic traditions believed in the divine feminine, and then you've got, 33,000 years ago, they just uncovered this artifact that was created 33,000 years ago of a woman, a very voluptuous woman who was pregnant. And when the archaeologists tipped the statue on the side, it was a statue of the earth. And it had mountains and it had rivers. And I was like, oh, because that's what it reminds me of, right? Mother Nature, Mother Earth, that thing that has created us no matter what is always taking care of us. And then we have the Kabbalah, which recognizes the divine feminine as a major aspect of God. We've got Taoism, which recognizes that the divine feminine is the wisdom keeper within us. Also, Buddhism believes that the divine feminine is that the wisdom part of us, that intuition that already knows. Separate and apart from the intellect, it just knows. And then, of course, we've got the goddesses, right? So we've got Cleopatra worshiping the goddess Isis, right, the mother of the earth, while her beloved Caesar is worshiping the Roman goddess, what's her name? Venus. There we go. She was here first service. And so you can see that throughout the centuries, throughout time, there's always been a pull and always been a call to bring ourselves to wholeness, to recognize the enchantment of the beloved Creator, of that womb of life, where we're always able to penetrate, and in a spiritual way, to implant the seeds of our thought and impregnate our spirit and express. This is getting weird, huh? Forget about it. Okay, so let's move on to some ways that we can practice this divine feminine so that we can bring these aspects together. Because for so long, unconsciously or consciously, in the race consciousness, society, whatever it is, the masculine is there, right? The material, the divine masculine, it's all apparent. And so let's start embodying this divine feminine. And there's 3 C's that I want you to remember. If you want to write it down, you can. And these 3 C's that we can practice are going to help us to really get in touch with that energy. And so we're going to create instead of deconstruct. We're going to compliment instead of criticize. And we are going to cooperate instead of compete. Now, that last one's hard for me because that divine masculine in me sure does like to compete, man. I mean, I love a good competition, right? But to work together, right? To work together for a greater good, that's what life is about, right? Like they say that you can't, it takes a village to raise a child. To cooperate, to complement. I told some people walking out, I said, I want you to find the most annoying, mean, grouchy person that you meet this week and give them a compliment. Because hurt people, and nobody's grouchy and mean and like that without something going on inside, right? And if you compliment them, you may not get anything in return but an ugly look, but later, they're going to reflect on that, right? And we have to create instead of deconstruct, because a lot of times what we do in our mind is we begin to deconstruct and desecrate ourselves. We begin to think that we're not good enough. We don't listen to that soft voice within us that tells us that we are a divine being. We listen to that part that says, oh, we've gained 5 pounds, or, oh, look at those wrinkles, or or whatever it is. I need to be a man, you know. But we create. This week, I want you to remember these 3 C's. I want you to create, and I will create. And I want you to complement, and I will complement. And I want you to cooperate, and I vow to cooperate this week. My mentor, Reverend Dr. Kathy Heard, she said, Nicole, sometimes you just got to let other people play, you know? Because I said, it's so hard. It's so hard. I just want it done a certain way. Sometimes you got to let other people play. And that's okay. It's okay. So what are we going to do this week? Yes. Does that sound hard? Are you for it? Are you for it anyway? Are you ready to embrace your divine feminine? Woo! And so it is. So it is.